All right. I'd love to call the meeting to order. It is 6:35 on November 12th, 2018. We'll start with a roll call to establish a quorum.
Deborah Mendel.
Russell Ohms,
Brock Alexander.
James Motlow.
Dustin Marr.
and that's 5. And since we have 9 members, that's a quorum. Agenda review. There's one group that may show up. Not sure whether they contacted us to talk, but then never got on the agenda. But if they do come, we may move announcements or public comments up to accommodate them. If they come late in the evening, I'll just let them follow through. So, minutes. Have you looked at the minutes? Have I looked at the minutes?
This is October 15, 2018 board
October.
meeting.
Okay. And today's okay. Good. This is last month.
They've been printed on both sides of the paper to save paper.
Motion to approve the minutes. I don't see anything.
All right. I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I hear a second?
Do we need to have public comment?
I will after a second.
Okay, I will second to accept the minutes.
Okay, good. It's been moved and second to accept our October minutes. Any public comment?
Yes. Article, or under section,
Yeah, could you come up a little bit so you can,
do I have to?
yeah, so we can hear you better.
Excuse me. On your minutes for the October 15, 2018 meeting, you have section 5, unfinished business, amending LMA bylaws. And within these minutes, you do not list that I made an objection under Article 6, Section 1. You cannot amend the bylaws. The 4 executive committee members do not have any authority over amending bylaws. So 4 of you need to recuse yourselves from any amendments to the bylaws as per bylaws, Article 6, Section 1. Thank you.
Thank you for your viewpoint. Okay, are there any other public comments? All right, I'll close public comments and move on to the vote. Any more discussion about the minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Good. Okay, moving on to reports. We have a treasurer's report, monthly.
Monthly treasury report, and as Debbie stated, it's printed on both sides when you look at this. So we have $31,614.52 currently in the Bank of Rio Vista, which makes our total assets $33,449.22.
Okay.
We still have only 2 property owners who are delinquent in their assessments. Of course, we have the estate of Robert Adams, which is ongoing, and we at some point will be looking into getting that money. It's a slow process. We have the other with Martha Esch, who currently has a balance of $1,428. But the litigation that we had in Small Claims Court, which we had won, she has filed an appeal, which we'll be going to on November the 30th. And, judging from past actions that have been taken, basically with the same kinds of arguments, I feel fully confident in that we will receive a positive ruling for the LMA on that suit. I think that's about it. Unless there are any questions from the board, Claudia?
Yeah, do any of the board members have questions for James? before I open it up to public comment?
No, it just seems like it's way better than it used to be. I mean, there were many things in the rears to get caught up, and now it's gotten a lot better, so
Cool.
looks good.
All right, I'll open it up to public comment. Anybody have a public comment on the treasurer's report? No public comment, so I'll close public comment and move on to unfinished business. Nope, am I missing something?
Did we vote?
Vote to
Oh,
do.
Did we
I'll
vote?
second it. No, we're all,
Oh,
make,
Who moved?
I'll
I
make a
would like-
motion
thank you.
to move, to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll second that
Great.
motion.
thank you for keeping me awake. All those in favor of signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? No, good. All right, now we're moving on to unfinished business. Well, the real reason for this meeting is to clear up something about our bylaws. So, would you
Actually,
like
hand it
to?
over to James.
To
of
James.
the
Okay, I'll let
subcommittee.
James speak for it.
Thank you, thank you. In your packet, you'll find the final, I believe it's the final page, the Article 4, the Board of Directors and such. And we realized, talking with Rob Leonard from Sacramento County, and his reading and what we had submitted, which we had submitted to the public and to the rest of the board members last meeting about the changes in the bylaws. He suggested, because it was undefined, that we realized in the bylaws that they never specified 6 property owners. It was simply by deduction that if you read the bylaws, that they said there would be, originally, because of the number of seats, they said the 6, I don't want to recap it, but basically it was only by deduction that you ended up with the 6 property owners. And because we felt at the time that we didn't want to add new language, we were just essentially changing the number of positions, that we didn't want to specify property owners because it wasn't specified in the 6. The number 6 was not specified in the previous document that had been put together by the county after long discussion. So I just assumed that the language was what they intended, and we would simply continue with that language. But with the new process of deduction, it's still, instead of having an additional, 4 other members, well, we got a total of, what was it?
Started with 13.
13
You passed
seats.
out the
Yeah,
numbers.
so if you read how we put the new language, it was again by deduction that you would still have 6 property owners. Rob Leonard suggested that to make that a specificity to 6 property owners. And so all we're doing is adding essentially the number 6 to these proposed changes to the bylaws. We do not, we're not voting to make these changes. The only the only body that can approve these changes is the Board of Supervisors. What we are preparing is a document in order to take to the Board of Supervisors to say, this is what we have done in order to amend our bylaws, and we are hoping that the Board of Supervisors will agree to these changes and give us the go-ahead.
Thank you, and we're working in close contact with county council.
County council,
We're
Board of
working with
Supervisors,
the
right.
county, we're not doing this ourselves, we're making sense of it. So we're not taking away any votes, we're just, nothing's changing.
Nothing's
In the last
changing, yeah.
15 years, nothing's changing. The same 6 residential owners will be represented on the board.
Correct.
Well,
The
property
potential-
owners.
Property owners.
The
property
potential
owners.
of having 6 property owners, the problem has always been not being able to fulfill those seats because of people not willing to come up and serve on the board.
Right.
So, but yes, that is correct.
So there's no language change except adding this six,
Yes, 6 directors
So that's-
who will represent the property owners.
and that was not on what we decided upon last,
The number 6
was not included.
right.
So, does everyone understand that, hopefully? Okay, great.
So county
That's-
council, if I'm clear, James, county council just said to add the word 6, one
Yes.
thing, so
Yeah.
then it's clearer and it's not a math problem.
Yes.
Do I understand that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, any board members have any questions about it? Are we all clear? We're gonna open up for public comment. Anybody have public comment about it?
Since you usually fail to answer questions or refuse to answer questions, I'll just make this a comment. Section 3, underlined, it says, selection of directors representing commercial and residential property owners. There's nothing in here, nothing in this language that specifies that the property owners' representatives have to be the owners themselves. There's nothing in this bylaw that states that the representatives cannot be a merchant, a renter, anybody. There's nothing there that says that the property owner representatives have to be property owners. So when I nominated Lisa Kirk to represent property owners and Ronnie Maiden nominated, and you said overruled, you're wrong.
Well, thank you. Any other comments? Stuart?
Just a clarification, you've been working with county executive
Yes.
rather than county council.
Both.
Oh, you've been working with June Powell's Mays or whoever is representing. Good, because they are kind of two different things.
Yes.
That's true.
And Chairman,
Yes.
this
Yes.
question
Public
about...
comments closed.
Yes, we're having our comment here.
Right.
I'm addressing...
Wait,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait. Yes, I didn't see, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
So is it that, in this, these articles, so the section 1, or section 3, it is essentially just adding the word 6 to it? So it is as is other than that? And that's what you've been working with the, with the supervisors and so on?
Exactly.
And their council?
Yes.
And so it doesn't change the rest of that in any way, shape, or form? Okay. There's no change regarding the representative or the owner or anything like that. It is as it is with a 6 in front of it. Okay.
Thank you. All right, any other comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close public comments, and James, you had a comment.
yes. In the 2 meetings ago, we had received a letter that had been addressed to Ms. Esch from the county, and we were CC'd with that stated that they explored all of these arguments that had been presented by Martha to the county, and they went through all that, and they simply said that Martha was wrong with all this.
They didn't say that. You have a
And
letter?
Point of order.
In that we, if there is a dispute about that, as the letter stated, if she feels that something is wrong, she can take it to the Attorney General. Thus far, since we have had clear directive from County Council that we are doing things legally and right, I will continue with that interpretation until another body of law says that we aren't.
And back to refocus for a second.
Yes.
The issue is adding the word 6.
Yes.
So with that, I didn't hear an argument for it or against it. It doesn't sound like it's that big a deal. I would like to make the motion to approve adding the word 6. Sounds a little ridiculous.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Could I just, could we clarify that we're, could your motion be more specific that we're going to add the number and the word 6
In section.
to section 3?
To section
Article
3.
4? Okay, because,
Right where it is on the paper.
okay, and so that was Brock's motion, and who is seconding it?
James.
I second it.
All right.
Is there any further discussion from the board? Great, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Objection,
Abstentions? You're out of
objection,
order,
violation
you're
of
out of order,
Article
you're out of
6,
order.
Section 1.
Shush.
Executive
moving on
committee has to
to the
recuse
properties
themselves from
manager's
a bylaw
report.
change.
New business, moving on. Okay, actions may be taken by the board as a result of the manager's report and recommendations on matters pertaining to common ground issues. So we have 5 things to talk about that the property manager will talk about. Common ground in general, community gardens, parking, fire safety, and updates of the 219 balloting process. Thank you. Anna?
So my name is Anna Paveo-Zinn. I'm the property manager for Locke. I've been the property manager since August. Most of you know me by now. I've been working to address multiple and myriad safety and maintenance concerns, most notably those identified in a town walkthrough with the Walnut Grove Fire Department. My goals are improving safety, communication, and quality of life in Locke, and to support the follow-through on all the identified standards so that the common ground areas of Locke are welcoming and safe. Since my last report to the board on October 15th, I have some updates. Under common ground, we should be finished with the lot clearing project next to the community garden within the week or so. We put the project out to bid. We received several quotes from local landscapers and elected to go with Efren Guzman Razo. His bid was among the lowest. He's based in Cortland, and he's open to doing more work with the LMA in future. He's been great to work with. He's removed approximately 3 truckloads of bamboo roots and debris, including a great deal of carpeting that was spread out over much of the lot. We will also be replacing some of the rotted boards in the boardwalks around town shortly. Russell Ohms has kindly offered to donate some redwood replacement boards, but will purchase others as needed. Chris Spencer is on leaf detail this time of year. He's our groundskeeper. So he'll be making use of empty space in the green waste bins around town to dispose of the leaves, which can pose a fire risk. And lastly, we've secured the window in the men's restrooms that cannot be opened at night. People were leaving it cracked open a little bit during the day so they could then get in through the window at night. It seems to be staying cleaner in there ever since. The restrooms are checked on or maintained 3 to 4 times a week, but please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me anytime if you notice unsanitary conditions or other issues. As to the community gardens, the garden plot leases run through the month of October, so the plots have now reverted back to the LMA for winter. We may be doing some general maintenance there. There was a private party held in the garden area, and the person hosting the party didn't follow up with the LMA to sign an event agreement, and residents subsequently reported that there was a lot of trash and materials left behind, including a lot of bottle caps, chicken bones, balloons, and candy wrappers. So going forward, an event agreement will be requested for any group events, which will better detail cleaning and disposal arrangements and any necessary fees if the area is not returned to its original condition, just so we can make sure it is properly clean for the next people to enjoy. Prior to beginning work on the open lot next to Ning Hao's garage, this is the next item, on October 26th, Treasurer James Motlow and I met with Mr. Hao and his agent Scott Sackett, who both seem to understand the community garden plot that he leases, number 23, is not of his ownership and cannot be fenced in. He removed the section of fence which allowed access by the equipment, and we started work on the lot next to it. The work proceeded, however, on Saturday, November 10th, the fence was found to have been reinstalled along now the back of his garage, once again blocking off access to part of the garden plot. He additionally has not filled in the large open compost pit as requested. The following is what he was advised on the matter by written notice on September 5th, 2018. States, this and the previous letter dated September 1st constitute 2 written warnings. Please remove the fence by September 20th to avoid receiving a 3rd written warning, which would constitute a violation of the grant of use and breach of the community garden plot agreement and could lead to your forfeiture of rights to this garden plot pending a hearing before the board of directors. And it is my belief that he still does not appreciate the fact that there are regulations governing development within the town of Locke, that he's beholden to these, along with all the other residents of Locke. So I await your instruction in terms of determining the next course of action. That is a hearing. I did reach out to both Mr. Howe and his agent, Scott Sackett, again about attending tonight. Howe did not reply. Scott said he couldn't make it tonight.
Mr. Chairman, should we discuss this at this point?
Do we want to let her finish?
Yeah.
And then we'll write down what we want to discuss and let her get the
Okay.
report
I
out, and
was
then we'll
unsure.
discuss
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Okay.
As to parking, I have been asked by one resident if the boat and trailer parking area to the north of town, it's just beyond museum building here, can be used for derelict vehicles, and it cannot. The board did at one time make an exception for a Tendon lock, and that didn't go perfectly smoothly. So this is not generally going to be offered in future. But since the last board meeting, multiple vehicles that met the county's criteria for being abandoned have been notified and subsequently are moving once again. A couple of those vehicles, however, have been parked in inappropriate or unsafe locations since, so we're going to continue to work with those residents about resources and ensure that their vehicles aren't causing further issues. And the Buick that remains in the parking area, again on the north side of town, back near the public lot, has not moved since August and still needs to be relocated. I've met with the owner who assured me that she would deal with the dead battery and move the car. And she actually met me this afternoon outside this building and said that the car will be picked up tomorrow morning by a repair person. So that's good news. And then I have put together some information for residents about vehicle donation and sales options, even if the car is not in good working order. And those are posted on the bulletin board, along with a map of the public and resident parking areas in Locke. Fire safety. Since my last report, one of the metal awnings between the buildings on Main Street has been removed, which is a positive. Metal awnings can trap heat, block sprinklers, and cause fire to more easily spread to neighboring buildings. And the fire department recommends that fiberglass awnings are the better alternative. I also noted that an empty fire extinguisher that's mounted on Main Street has been serviced and is now full, which I appreciate. I am working with the fire department to replace several of the fire hoses in Locke and maintain the fire boxes, which are no longer watertight. Property owners today received a newsletter via email, which includes a supplement about fire safety, including a description of how the Main Street sprinkler system functions and some tips on preventing fires in and around Locke. I'm happy to print and distribute copies of the newsletter and supplement, but do feel free to share it via email with any tenants, maintenance workers, if you like. And I'd be happy to add additional email addresses to the list around Locke, if that's helpful. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the removal of dead leaves is a priority right now and during the next few weeks. The 2019 election. Property owners also today received an email from me sharing the results of the board election for the 2 seats previously held by Deborah Mendel, the residential seat, and Brock Alexander, the commercial seat. Out of 32 nomination forms that were sent out, only 3 were returned. Each of the other nominees, Clarence Chu, Sandy Derringer, Linda Morais, and Catherine Zhang, declined their nominations. Fortunately, Deborah and Brock both agreed to accept their nominations, so per last year's decision by the board not to ballot during uncontested elections, the election process is now complete, and both Ms. Mendel and Mr. Alexander will serve for a 3-year period starting January 2019. Property owners not having an email address available for contact will get this information by mail, and I encourage all property owners to register an email address with the board to reduce mailing expenses. So please don't hesitate to see me after the meeting for any clarifications on individual issues, or email me anytime with alerts or for requests for assistance or information. I have some contact cards that are available after the meeting if you'd like one, and it's also posted on the bulletin board outside. Thank you.
Thank you for an amazing, comprehensive report. So the way I'm going to work this, I'm going to first open it up to the board, and what I want you to do, if you have a question for her, ask about, first tell it what it is, common ground, parking, fire safety, and then ask your question. And after the board has asked our questions, I'll open up for public comment, and you yourselves can ask questions. We'll make a little bit of a to and fro, but not much. So the board now, do you have any questions to ask her or comments to make?
I do, Anna. What I understood you were asking for with the Ning situation was a clear directive from us of what you should do. Do I understand that right?
That's correct. The garden plot agreement refers to a hearing, so that to me might be the appropriate next step. Now, that's assuming he would be present for that, which, you know, he has told me personally that it's not his intention to come to these meetings. I think it'd be appropriate if he could. It'd be very nice if he could. But certainly in lieu of that, I'm happy to continue to work with him via these written notices and or go see him in person as I have done. Although the last time that happened prior to our meeting with him and his representative, he did share that even though it wasn't personal, he was very upset and was perceived that all of this was trying to get him to leave Locke, despite my assurances of that. So it'd be nice to just have some clear
So
direction.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, I take that as it's more than simply asking questions. What we need to do is to talk amongst ourselves.
I hear that, but let's save that
Okay.
until we clear up questions
Yeah.
or
Okay.
comments.
Thank you.
So, Brock, do you have any questions, comments about anything?
No, I liked it, and then I like that you keep it fresh in our mind, because when you showed the picture of the fire safety, those vines climb so crazy around here. I had cleared my house, and then I saw one the other day. So I like that it's fresh in my mind, and it reminds owners to check their own property. And I like that you're establishing the procedures. And as I understand it, you're kind of wanting to do either 3 warnings and then let them know that, you know, if you can't resolve it with you, it comes to the board where a decision will be made. Is that what your hope? Is that what works and you see is fair for you?
You know, I'm referring to what's already in
Yeah.
writing, and I'd love to just have a consistent procedure that we follow.
Okay.
This is not personal. No one is trying to drive him out. And, you know, I would just love to have a pathway for dealing with him, you know, appropriately and consistently as we would with anyone. And I hate that we've gotten to this point. It's now escalated to the point where, you know, he is risking his privileges, because that was the one thing that he and his representative wanted almost a guarantee of, is that he had the rights to that plot. And now he's the one putting that at risk by making the fence reappear, which was expressly stated in writing.
Is the current installation of the fence in the way of the worker continuing his cleanup?
No, it's almost done. The fence was absent for a period of time that allowed the worker to get in there and scoop out some of the bamboo that was there. At this point, it's just back to that issue of blocking off access to the plot
Okay, so-
for other equipment, for other purposes, or for public enjoyment.
And so the bamboo that was immediately behind Ning's garage, were those roots cleared out, or?
They appear
Not.
to be fairly well removed. Now that remains to be seen, as we saw before when the bamboo was cut down or superficially removed.
So,
There is a lot underneath there,
so
and
your worker didn't actually do that, Ning wanted to do it himself? Is that what you're
Ning
saying?
wanted to do it himself. He did not want us to bring any heavy equipment onto his property line, which we actually did go out there and guesstimate. We actually measured it out, what it might be, what was the total area of his property. Now, we're not surveyors, but definitely wanted to give his property a bit of a berth, so that we could not harm anything. And so did Efren when he was doing the work. He did not want to risk damaging his, Ning's garage. So, upon his request, he said, please don't bring the equipment onto my property. I'll clear out the roots. And it looks like that's been done, although, I could see how it would be very difficult to get those out manually because it is a pretty large area that he had to
So
tug
you
in.
don't know that they were actually dug out, those roots?
I don't know that they were fully dug out.
Oh,
It does
so
look
there was
like the
some
ground was
attempt
dug
to-
into, and
Okay.
it does look currently fairly free of bamboo there.
So then I would ask that you keep an eye on it, that it, especially as we start to get some rain, if we do get rain, we'll know whether,
Right.
because it looks like his name's Ephraim?
Ephraim, yes.
Ephraim, yeah, that he's been doing a very, very thorough job, and it's amazing, the root system, as I walk past there, that, what he's uncovered, it's just, you thought it was over, but then it's not.
It's astounding.
It is.
And he has been quite fastidious about it, but there are some roots, he said, that go under the road back there. And we know we're gonna have to stay on it. Keep an eye on anything that's going to come back.
And I have a question about the fire hoses. Have you gotten any estimate or help with an estimate from the fire department on those hoses yet?
I have.
A ballpark, or-
They gave me some sizes and some information. I took that down to Lyman's Hardware, who has given me a quote for 3 full hose sets with the fittings, the male and the female fittings that come with. I have that information now. I just need to get another quote, which I can do online. There are low-cost things. I just need to also figure out to make sure they're really going to be fully assembled by Lyman's or someone that can do that properly, or if we have to ask the fire department to do that for us. The holdup right now is that the boxes themselves are without integrity in a couple of cases. So we could go through all this work to replace the hoses, and the minute that
Right.
they get wet in there, they're ruined again. So we're looking at replacing the acrylic panels, sealing them and shutting them well. And in the case of one of the boxes, it's tilted back fairly far, which might just encourage water to run right in there again. And it's securely tilted backward. So I just want to make sure that I'm not wasting the hose expense immediately as soon as they get wet if the boxes aren't safe.
Well, I have a few comments. First, the common ground, where the bamboo is, it's amazing with this map. I'm really familiar with that lot. I've looked at it, I've cleaned it up myself, I've hand cleaned it all out, and then it'll go back. But it's not just the bamboo. He took out all the pipes. Years of people putting in pipes. There were people buried refrigerators. There were rocks. There were metal plates. There were tanks. It was everything in that ground. It was an old tank laying there. Bricks he's found, concrete, and amazing work he's doing. So he's a gem to find. The community gardens, it's interesting, it's true that our contracts had it revert back to the LMA during the winter months, because that gives us a chance, the LMA, to go out there and clean them up, get rid of invasive weeds. I've just cleaned up myself with the help of a guy named Stuart we cleaned up 2 of the lots, and we're about to rototill them, dug out all the Bermuda grass and dug out all the Johnson grass, which is invasive. But once you get it out and keep it out, it stays out, but you have to keep above it. And I'm really happy the parking is always ongoing. People and cars, it's like, I don't know, it's almost like part of their flesh or something. They don't like to lose them. So, but you just keep on it. And the fire safety, it's good to hear that you're changing those railroad loop through. It's just, you can, and making, if we can get all fiberglass between it, it'll burn away and the fire will be isolated to that one building. It won't travel like a match. And thank you again for updating on the balloting process. We've researched that and we know that we're on firm footing. Debbie's found the applicable non-balloting.
The county, the code.
The county code. We
State
took
code,
it
right?
straight from the county code, that if there's no opposing party, then there's no sense to have an election. And it's quite amazing that we sent out 33 ballots and we got, what, 10% back, 3 back.
32 and 3.
So one had 4 names and one had 3 names. And of the 3 names, 2 said no and 1 said yes. And on the 4 names, 3 said no, they're never going to do it, and 1 said yes. And it just happened to be Debbie and Brock. So that's, you do your best. I mean, what can you do to go through the effort and to have an election? We're trying to save the Luck Management Association money. We don't want to spend extra money. We're not that rich. So we don't want to go through the effort of a ballot, mailing them out, printing, postage. So
Yeah, I clarify that code specifically. I could tell you the specific code. It's a civil code.
it's a
actually.
civil code, yeah.
Yeah, that, under Civil Code 3532, it basically says that the law does not require idle acts, nor does it favor form over substance. And Civil Code 5100A requires balloting only if an election requires a vote. If the election is uncontested, there is no need for a vote. So that's,
So that's
Partly
why
why
we
we
did.
made
We love
that
a vote. It's
decision.
fun to have a vote. But if it's not contested, we're not self-appointed. We agreed, we went through the balloting process, and that's why we're sitting here.
nominate.
We nominated process. So that's what I have to say. Does anybody? Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up a little bit on the names.
Well, can you wait for that and see what the general public has to say? Then we'll talk about that.
We can open it up again.
Sure, either place, I mean, yeah.
But I want to get the
Sure.
public, I'm going to open it up to public comment now. So anybody have any comment or questions for Anna?
Your newsletter was very pretty and full of interesting things that we've never had here before. Some of them I thought were great. Other things I thought, as far as you speaking of that there's been an election, there has not been an election. The election is, per the bylaws, supposed to happen every year, right here in your insertion, the board's insertion, it says selection of directors representing commercial and residential property owners every year in December. That's next month. The board shall conduct a balloting process to select, now you're going to insert 6 directors who represent the property owners and whose term is completed prior to January 1 of the following calendar year. The nominating committee shall develop a list of candidates to fill these positions. Okay, so who was the nominating committee? Did we ever even establish a nominating committee? I nominated Lisa Kirk to represent the commercial property owner, a commercial property. Her name did not appear on a nomination ballot. So did, and Diane Thomas, or not Diane Thomas, Ronnie Maven nominated Lisa Kirk. her, but for some reason, you didn't include her name on the nomination ballot. Now you're saying that you're going to,
We're talking about the report
property
here.
owner report.
Please
Okay, I
stick to the Anna's, what she knows.
Okay.
She can't answer that
okay,
question.
Anna sent an email today to the property owners, and I believe the wording was that the board is dispensing with having an election if it's uncontested. Well, I contest Ms. Mendel and her mortgagee, Brock Alexander, sitting together on the executive committee or on the board together at all. I protest that. I contest that election. So an election should be held. We should not, the 32 property owners, excuse me, this is
Do you
my
have any
public comment.
questions about the property manager?
Oh, I
report?
have lots of questions, but you never
Well-
answer my questions, so I'm gonna try to keep it to public comment. The 4 executive committee members cannot change the bylaws. You guys have to recuse
This is
yourself.
Let it go, it's 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Okay. Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you for your comments.
Yet another LMA self-election.
Point of order, your
Illegal.
comments. Point of order.
Illegal.
All right, great. Any other public comments? Anyone else like to have any questions for Anna about the property manager's report and how things are going? And okay, great.
I would.
Oh, sure.
I'd like to thank Anna. This is great. And seeing a newsletter, I have to do newsletters. I know how hard it is putting those together. Not only is it informational, but it looks really good too. I think back in the days, we'd even talked about having a newsletter for the town. And it's wonderful. It's really a blessing to have Anna. It was a good choice. So, good job.
Thank you. We are excited too. Any other public comment? All right, I'll close public comment. And James, you wanted to follow through?
Before you go there,
Well, yeah,
if
go
I
ahead.
might interrupt you.
Yes, you might.
Just because this lie was just put on film. Brock has a mortgage with a bank,
I know, it's,
and I just don't want
You don't
that
even need to go
lie
in
on
there.
record,
Yeah.
okay? Well, it's about me
It is. It's
personally,
a
so I
personal
find
attack.
that, I just want the truth out.
yeah,
Now let's get back to business. Thank you
Yeah.
for indulging me.
go ahead.
Certainly. Well, also, I'd like to thank you, Anna. You do a great job. And it was a pleasure working with you, with Ning and Scott that day. But what I'm concerned with here is actually the fence. And the
fence.
removal of the fence and the potential cost of the removal of that fence unless Ning accepts that and takes it on himself. So in whatever direction that we, hopefully Anna takes, that a wording will be included in that will,
Martha, you're interrupting?
I'm hoping Anna hears this, so, that you'll have wording in that stating that it's not only the loss of the potential garden that has to be dealt with, and if he has a problem with that, he can come to the board and plead that if he loses it. But a more immediate addressing would be for what I would like to have inserted in that, is that a time relatively soon, maybe in a week or so, that fence has to be gone. There's nothing, and we've explained this to him very much in detail to him and Scott. And so the issue of the garden plot is one thing, but the fence is a separate issue at this point and needs to be removed. And if we have to remove it, I want to make sure that he knows that he's going to have to pay for it, which is not what we want to do. I'd much rather have him remove it, but I'd like wording in that, to that effect. As the treasurer.
The only thing I'm thinking is that I would believe that we would back Anna, whatever she chooses to do to make the fence go away as soon as possible. And if that means meeting with his spokesperson, Scott, now I understand both you, Anna, Ning, and Scott had a 1-hour conversation about this very issue, and he agreed, they both agreed not to put the fence there, and then suddenly the fence is there. So it was a verbal agreement, face-to-face, word, man, shake hands, and then he went ahead and put the fence up. So that's why we're a little upset, because we thought we had solved the problem, and we didn't. So, I would encourage Anna to do her best, and that we would back her, whatever she decides, is what I would like to do.
I agree with that,
Because
Mr.
she's
Chairman.
representing
Totally,
us, and we don't
absolutely.
need to have a meeting or a subcommittee meeting about it. Just pursue, we're just enforcing our bylaws and what, our property. He's building fences on our property and claiming it as his own, and it's not his own property. And he can't get, I've been telling him for 10 years that it's not his property, and he believes when he bought his property, he bought that property. He didn't. It's very, very clear. The maps are clear. You can see the subdivision map, where his property is, his name is on it and everything, but the rest of it's all common ground. It's equal opportunity for all of us to go to it. So it's open.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like a little clarification in that
Yes.
these were suggestions to her to put into her dealings with
Yes.
Ms. Ning. I back totally in what she's doing. I have full belief in her capabilities and however she wishes to word it. It was only my suggestion that that's included, because as a treasurer, I'm looking at having to spend money.
Money, right. And that's, you're doing due diligence as a treasurer. All right, does anybody else have comments for Anna or about the property manager's report?
Well, I would just like to say I agree with James that I think just, try to reach out using perhaps Scott's help, since Ning brought Scott into this. And, if you feel that a week, giving him, say a week's time or something to remedy it, that's more than reasonable, considering all the time and effort you and James and Scott have already put into making it clear to him that these kinds of fences are not permitted around your gardens. So, it sounds, do you feel like you have some direction now, or do you want something more specific?
I do. My only lingering concern, because it has been made very clear that the fence is not appropriate, it's totally against what's in the agreement, as well as the policy and how the land's always been used. The only thing that is my concern is that it mentions, like step 3 is you become in, whatever it is, violation of your agreement, which then puts his ability to have that plot again in the future.
Would you like us to schedule a hearing regarding his garden plot and request that he be there?
That would be
Something-
ideal.
We can do that.
Following that agreement, the terms of that agreement, that would be great. Now, I understand that really the fence itself is a separate issue from the violating the agreement. It would just be maybe nice to give him the opportunity to deal with them as separate issues, and we certainly can't. Like I said, the fence reappearing, we could just pursue, like you were told to take it down. You're also having a hearing about multiple issues, including the compost pit, I suppose. Because he's been warned about that multiple times as well. And then you to make a determination about the garden plot, because he was quite clear that he thought we were trying to run him out, and that we definitely wanted to take that plot away from him. That's not anything I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to deal with the fence issue and the barrier that it causes to working that land, which is part of my job.
Right. Well, would you be comfortable if, this is all fresh, and I understand you haven't had a chance to really talk to Ning yet, or
Yeah.
thoroughly talk with Scott either, so can you, come back to, you could come back to me or Russell or, one of the officers if you want to, if you're suggesting a hearing, if you think that would help, I'd be more than happy to schedule that, it could be just a total separate, just for that, at a time that would be amenable for Ning and or Scott, if Scott's willing to still be a mediator of sorts. I mean, would that,
Perfect.
would you like that idea, or?
Pursue it.
That's
and
great,
if you
and I'm
need us,
happy to
come
say
back. If you solve it, great.
fence,
Keep going.
the fence is up, it's gotta get 86th, and then plus we can have a hearing for you.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, oh, Rob?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I like the consistency, keep that up with everybody that you deal with, the consistency, and they've been properly notified, they've been given a decent, fair amount of time. If you do that, I will always support these choices, so, thank you. And I just wanted to add, I love that line, it doesn't favor form over substance.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's beautiful.
We're not, protocol does not mean anything. Okay, I'm gonna move on to communications. Does anybody have any
Come
comment?
on.
Is there still public comment?
Well, we closed public
That's fine.
comments. But you know what, at the very end, we have public comments, so you can make the
Not on
comment
the
then.
agenda or
It's still on the, yeah, well, you can, well, without. Okay, communications,
That's the secretary,
that's you,
yes.
go ahead. Talk.
It's been a while. Well, James had one of the communications, which was the notice from the small claims court that Ms. Esch is appealed, are winning the claim for her assessments and such, so. But then the other one was, as I had announced in the October meeting, and there was a sample of the first few pages of the writ of mandate that Ms. Esch has filed against the Lock Management Association, the Lock Foundation, and the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. As a follow-up to that, she sent us a special interrogatory, set number 1, and included in that, it was over 9 pages of paper, so I've only printed up 5. I will send digital copies to the board. It has, of course, been already sent to our lawyers, so they'll be dealing with it, but if anyone present today would like a copy, and essentially it is about the writ of mandate. It is, I believe this is called Discovery, right. So it's 9 pages, and that is the only other communication that we have this month. If anybody wants a copy, I have 5 today. It was just too much to print for everyone here, but if directors want copies, I'll put it in a digital format.
All right, do the members have any questions for this? Okay, I'm gonna open up to public comment. Anybody have any public comment on this issue?
I do.
Okay, 3 minutes for public comment.
As per Brown Act, all packet materials should be available to the public.
Moving on, then I'm going to close communications and move on to public comments. And these are traditionally for comments about anything, not on the agenda, so we didn't have to put it on the agenda. So if you have any comments about anything, now is the time to speak.
Nowhere on tonight's agenda appears anything about discussing Ning Ho's garden, and you discussed it for a good 25 minutes. And you directed the property manager to make actions that were not board actions. That's a Brown Act violation.
Thank you. Any other comments to make or questions? Yes.
I don't think I have enough background to completely understand what you're talking about on that, so preface it with that. But I think it's real important to, I like the idea of a hearing, if it comes to that, because it feels to me like, just from a situation standpoint and what I just heard, and that's all I know, is that to put her in a position of having to, solve it, she could try, but it seems like she's already tried. And that at some point, you know, to do the full process, that may be what it takes in order to not have further action that keeps going and going and going and going because someone somehow feels that it was inappropriate. You know, saves yourself some time and effort by doing it. That's from my experience elsewhere.
I hear you, yes. Thank you. Your comment that is positive and helpful. Any else? Stuart?
I wanted to personally thank the whole board for every one of you attending the Locke Foundation fundraising benefit. It was very successful. It's going to help us increase our advertising for the town, to offer more scholarships for the local kids, and a myriad of new things that we're trying to accomplish this year for the town, and the history and the legacy of the town, including, if you guys haven't seen the new, this was not cheap, what the foundation has put in upstairs. We had our opening last week, and despite the opening of the Chinese railroad workers of the Transcontinental Railroad, and despite being fairly cold and really smoky, that was a very successful event. And hopefully we can, with Martha Esch's attacking the foundation along with the LMA, we can work together to get through that litigation. So, do we have announcements here? Oh, that's.
We do.
And we have the Lock Angels of the Field benefit. Most of you have helped with that through donations and time and energy to bring Christmas to the children of the local farm workers. So, and a lot of the other residents of the town.
What date is that?
December 1st, Saturday. So come on in, and it's a fundraiser, and it's a lot of fun, and a lot of live music, and a very worthy cause. So again, thank you all.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, I'll close public comments and go on to announcements. You just made one, but does anybody have any announcements of anything? No announcements? Then I will adjourn this meeting at 32? 7:32.
7:33 on my phone.
7:33. Less than an hour. That's a record.